Referendum with flashing images.
In September 2014, the people of Scotland will decide whether or not to bring to an end the 300-year-old political union of the United Kingdom.
This is a historic opportunity to mobilise our natural and human resources to build a very special society here in Scotland.
It's a decision that, though made here in Scotland, will have a major impact on the lives of every one of us living in these islands.
I think Scotland would be better off in the United Kingdom, I do think that, but I think the United Kingdom would be so much worse off without Scotland.
But just why do so many people north of the border appear to want to break up what many regard as one of the most successful countries the world has ever seen, Great Britain? And what's happened to Scotland that's taken it from being at the very heart of the Union in 1945 to today, preparing for a referendum on independence?
There will be no babying.
Where there is discord, may we bring harmony.
The warrant sale is cancelled.
The Scottish Parliament is hereby reconvened.
VE Day 1945. Scotland had never been more British than in the moment of victory over Hitler. However, it soon became clear that the United Kingdom's position as a global power was diminishing as colonies sought and won independence, leaving Great Britain without an empire and struggling to find a role. For those British youngsters growing up in the 1950s on a diet of Hollywood movies and rock and roll, it was an accepted fact that America was now the world's political, economic and cultural superpower. For older Britons, it was going to take something altogether more dramatic. In 1956, Britain invaded Egypt to seize control of the Suez Canal and depose the Egyptian president Nasser, who'd nationalised it.
Sir Anthony said, Britain and France have called upon Egypt and Israel to stop all warlike action forthwith.
This action incensed America, who ordered Britain's immediate withdrawal.
The 1st Battalion, the Yorks and Lancs, who'd recently been holding the front line at El Cap, are already on their way home together with other units.
The Suez Canal was, for me, like a kind of full stop on the fantasy that stayed in some British heads, that they still had the kind of clout and the kind of authority that they'd had before the war.
The Suez Crisis confirmed just who was the junior partner among these former wartime allies. But Britain still had its uses. In the early 1960s, amid increasing tension between America and the Soviet Union, Scotland's position in the North Atlantic made her a natural home for the United States nuclear submarine fleet.
My real interest at that point was in banning the bomb. You know, in 1961, Polaris came to the Clyde, and I was more interested probably in that. The SNP has always been anti-nuclear, and so that seemed like another good reason for joining the SNP.
The arrival of American nuclear missiles split Scottish opinion down the middle. But as Polaris came up the Clyde, the Scottish economy, it seemed, was headed down the Swanee, with coal mining, shipbuilding and steel making all in long-term decline. In an attempt to reverse that decline and kick-start the Scottish economy, the Tory Prime Minister Harold Macmillan told the very successful Midlands car manufacturers that if they wanted to increase production, they'd have to move their operation north of the border. So, under duress, Roots headed to Scotland to make the Hillman Imp.
His Royal Highness the Duke of Edinburgh visits Linwood to mark the official opening of a great industrial project.
But this well-meaning experiment in regional planning was doomed to fail, as all the component suppliers and the precision engineering works were still based in the English Midlands. Presented here is the very first of almost 500,000 imps to roll off the production line between 1963 and 1976. But forcing car manufacturers to move to where the government wanted them to go was never going to work in the long term. And the Scottish economy continued to falter, and Scottish unemployment continued to rise. In the general election of 1964, Scotland looked to Labour's Harold Wilson to reverse the decline. Despite the faltering economy, the overwhelming majority of Scots remained emotionally and culturally British, to an extent almost unimaginable today.
I know of people who actually were sitting watching the England-West Germany game in 1966, and they thought it was perfectly uncontested to support England. The mascot of those games was a British mascot. There was a way in which the version of Scotland as British wasn't contested.
Since then, the world became very England-centred, and people began to get fed up of being referred to as being English when we were Scottish, or we were only British when it seemed to suit the English. The weather stopped at Carlisle, the news stopped at Carlisle, and that is really when the divide began to appear, and people who previously weren't much bothered about it began to get fed up of the fact that people in Scotland were being ignored by England and by London politics.
And when they weren't being ignored, they were being stereotyped as hopeless drunks in what felt like just about every British TV drama ever made.
Well, what can we do for you?
The only chance did you happen to have such a thing as a wee Gillespie man Honda in here tonight?
We've quite a selection, various sizes.
Many Scots, trying to find their own distinctive voice in the 1960s, turned to the folk music scene,
Red funnels glow in the sun.
which was enjoying a huge popular revival. But there were still more people at Hampden to watch Celtic play Rangers in the 1966 Scottish Cup final than voted SNP in that year's general election. Perhaps that's why, a year later, the Labour Party felt confident enough to move the MP for Hamilton to a high-paying job at the Hydroelectric Board, provoking a needless by-election in one of their safest Scottish seats. The SNP chose as their candidate an exciting and confident young woman.
I declare Winifred Margaret Ewing has been duly elected to serve in Parliament as a member.
It changed everything. It was one of the safest Labour seats in the UK, and Winnie Ewing just overturned this huge Labour majority and a complacent Labour machine. So things were never the same again.
Almost immediately, Prime Minister Harold Wilson announced a royal commission to examine Scottish devolution.
It was knee-jerk reaction, fueled by panic. Panic was what it was all about. Otherwise, they'd never have contemplated it at that time.
To give the people of Scotland.
The Tory leader Ted Heath was equally quick to declare his support for a directly elected Scottish Assembly.
And to do this within the historic unity of the United Kingdom.
But a few promises weren't going to reverse this upsurge in nationalist feeling, particularly when oil, billions of gallons of it, was discovered under the Scottish sector of the North Sea.
Oil, that is. Black gold, Texas tea.
The discovery of North Sea oil caused quite a song and dance in the early 1970s, and the radical theatre company 784 got in the act with their production of The Cheviot, the Stag and the Black Black Oil, which played to sell-out crowds in towns and villages in every part of Scotland.
17, 18, 19, 20, you'll get nothing, I'll get plenty. 21, 22, 23, 24 billion dollars more. 25, 26, 27, 28, watch my cash accumulate. 27, 28, 29, 30, you play dumb, I'll play dirty. All you folks are off your head, I'm getting rich from you see bed. I'll go home when I see fit, all that leaves a heap of
I think there's no question that the culture was ahead of the politics rather than the other way around. So there was all sorts of different dynamics going on there, and 784 gave voice to that.
But if the culture was ahead of the politics, politics was catching up, fast. In November 1973, there was a by-election in Glasgow Govan. The SNP chose another young woman to fight another rock-solid Labour seat.
Govan was a desperate place, and I was so angry that people were living in the most awful conditions. And when people said to me, "You're selfish, wanting to keep this oil money," I said, "Right, come with me. 5 minutes in any direction, and you tell me that I'm selfish."
Against the unstoppable force of the woman the press dubbed the blonde bombshell, the Labour vote collapsed, and suddenly Margaret MacDonald was making headlines across the UK. But she wasn't the only headline-grabbing Scot in the early 70s. Edinburgh heartthrobs the Bay City Rollers were the hottest thing in UK popular music. Tartan flares and a matching wrist scarf were even regarded by some as the height of fashion. Anxious not to miss the tartan zeitgeist, the BBC in London commissioned a series about tartan. Terrorists.
Glad you joined. Right. Just exactly what is it I've joined? Scottish Liberation Army.
Well, I was writing the books then with a friend of mine called Andrew Osmond, and we hoped, of course, it would be a bit of a stir.
Dramatised by the BBC at the height of the Troubles in Northern Ireland, the linking of the terrorist Scottish Liberation Army to the SNP provoked a furious response from the nationalists.
I'm not accusing the Scottish Nationalist Party.
I'm relieved to hear that.
But the movement has always had a fringe of wild men. You've seen the reports from Special Branch.
The Scottish Nationalists were very sensitive. The Scottish Nationalists had taken a huge amount of trouble to destroy it, to discredit and destroy it.
They succeeded, and Scotch on the Rocks hasn't been near a television screen since. These were very sensitive times. As never before, the SNP was now a genuine player in UK politics, taking 22% of the Scottish vote in February 1974.
Robert Gordon Wilson, 22.
No doubt Gordon Wilson's victory in Dundee East gave Harold Wilson in Downing Street a few sleepless nights.
We've got a job to do.
He was running a minority government.
We can only do that job as one people.
And another general election was imminent. Wilson decided that the best way to derail the SNP bandwagon and keep Labour popular in Scotland was for them to become pro-devolution again, despite the opposition of his own party in Scotland.
The Labour establishment in Scotland said, we control this country. We control its councils. We control most of its parliamentary seats. Why should we muck that up? Why should we set up something, the control of which we can't guarantee?
But Wilson was adamant Labour would support devolution. So at a hastily convened meeting in Glasgow, and using the trade union bloc vote, devolution was forced upon a reluctant Scottish party.
90% expediency. No, 99% expediency.
Expediency or not, it worked. In October 1974, though taking 30% of the vote, the SNP won only 11 of Scotland's 71 parliamentary seats. Industrial Scotland stayed loyal, just. Harold Wilson returned to Downing Street with his plan for a Scottish Assembly supported by the SNP and the new Conservative leader, Margaret Thatcher.
I actually have in my possession a letter I received from Margaret Thatcher after she had become leader of the Conservative Party, in which she said the Conservative Party remains committed to a Scottish Assembly, and that is our policy.
With such cross-party support, Wilson believed his devolution bill would sail through the House of Commons. But
there was huge opposition to the Scotland and Wales bill, particularly from the north of England, but also from big parts of Wales, and the party was very badly divided.
Labour weren't alone, as despite her letter of support, Mrs Thatcher performed an uncharacteristic U-turn.
There is no sound or honourable basis for the great constitutional change which Labour have proposed. Devolution
received another blow when, out of the blue in March 1976, Harold Wilson resigned as Prime Minister. His replacement, James Callaghan, was at best ambivalent on the subject, encouraging Labour's anti-devolutionists to make their move. As the government's devolution bill inched its way through Parliament, a group of Labour MPs moved an amendment, unprecedented in British parliamentary democracy. They said that unless 40% of those on the electoral register voted yes, the Assembly wouldn't happen. This meant that the dead voted no. Those too ill to get to the polling booths voted no. Those who couldn't make up their minds voted no. And those who couldn't be bothered to vote voted no.
It was an act of treachery by a Labour Member of Parliament to effectively hamstring what was the government's policy, indeed one of its flagship policies. It was an act of gross treachery.
But in 1978, Scotland had more important things to think about. They were going to win the World Cup.
Joining in song now with Rod Stewart on Que Sera Sera. We're going to the Argentine.
Ally MacLeod had convinced the nation that World Cup glory was imminent. The bookies were convinced, offering odds of 8-1, yes, 8-1, on Scotland winning the World Cup. And more than 25,000 people turned up at Hampden to cheer the squad off to Argentina. Not only did they return empty-handed, they also returned in disgrace. And the summer's optimism had been replaced by the winter of discontent. By January 1979, public goodwill towards the Callaghan government had all but evaporated.
Shut the negotiations, answer the question, don't be a politician.
In Scotland, amid all the strikes and shortages caused by the winter of discontent, there was a referendum campaign desperately trying to get started.
Okay. Well, I can't put that on you then.
Not yet. The 1979 referendum campaign was an absolute nightmare. You had a no side which was united, knew what it wanted to do, and you had a yes side which was split all over the place.
Against this backdrop, on March 1st, 1979, with snow underfoot and the Bee Gees' Tragedy ominously sitting at the top of the charts, Scotland went to the polls to record a very timid yes vote. But this wasn't enough, as fewer than 40% of those on the register had said it. Well ahead in the polls and itching for a general election, the Conservatives propose a vote of no confidence in the Labour government.
I always look forward to a good fight.
In a move described famously by James Callaghan as turkeys voting for an early Christmas, the SNP, in revenge for Labour's failure to deliver devolution, sided with the Tories and the Liberals, and the government was defeated by just one vote. A general election was called, an election that was to change the course of Scottish history. But in the early 80s, it appears the opposition thought it more important to win their own civil wars than oppose Mrs. Thatcher. The SNP's radical left took on and lost to the traditional wing of the party. Their fight led to a dramatic conference walkout and the eventual expulsion of a young Alex Salmond from the party. Meanwhile, Labour's lurch to the left under new leader Michael Foot was the final straw for those on the centre-right of the party who split from Labour and formed the SDP, eventually forming an alliance with the Liberals.
There was at least one opinion poll that said we, the Alliance, Liberals, SDP, were running at 51%.
I have the good fortune to be the first Liberal leader for over half a century who's able to say to you at the end of our annual assembly, go back to your constituencies and prepare for government.
It seemed to me that such was the state of our support that no government could be formed without us.
Particularly so after March 1982, when former Labour Home Secretary Roy Jenkins won a stunning by-election victory at Glasgow Hill Head.
And what stopped it? Immediately after Hill Head, General Galtieri invaded the Falklands, and suddenly British domestic politics was completely changed,
And Mrs. Thatcher was Boadicea and Britannia rolled into one, and we couldn't compete against that.
Be pleased to inform Her Majesty that the White Ensign flies alongside the Union Jack in South Georgia. God save the Queen.
What happens next, Mr. Nott?
Thank you very much.
What's your reaction,
Rejoice at that news and congratulate our forces and the Marines.
Are we going
Good
to
night,
declare
gentlemen.
war on...
Hailed by many as a hero after victory in the Falklands, Mrs. Thatcher was rewarded with a landslide win in the 1983 general election, taking a massive 46% of the English popular vote.
Dawn, Mrs. Thatcher greeted almost hysterical crowds in Downing Street, frantically scrambling over one another for a glimpse, a touch of the Prime Minister.
Labour had their worst result since 1918, but their vote held up remarkably well in Scotland, giving the first real sign that politically the nations of the United Kingdom were beginning to drift apart.
In Scotland, there were a greater proportion of people who wished to cling on to the things which had made the country a good country. They were not ready to go quietly into that good night that many parts of England were.
She articulated some deep felt sentiments among large sections of the English population, which wanted a more competitive economy in which people paid fewer taxes. That was popular, and Thatcher didn't create that, she articulated it and then made it happen.
To make it happen, she needed to curtail the trades unions. At the height of her powers in 1983, she started with the National Union of Mine Workers, hitherto the untouchable big beasts of British trades unionism. Early in 1984, an extensive programme of pit closures, the loss of 20,000 jobs, was announced. The miners at Polmaze, Colliery and Stirling walked out, and so began one of the longest and most bitter industrial disputes in British history.
At British Gas, we're revolutionising the way our customers see their energy. We're upgrading you to smart meters, so you'll get accurate bills without submitting meter readings. And you'll get a breakdown of what you're spending on things like heating and lighting. With smart meters, you'll never see energy in the same way again. British Gas. We do more to look after your world.
Pure and innocent as meringue Free Rouge. New Magnum Loving Kiss.
You are the one.
Magnum 5 Kisses.
£268, £217, horse, £243. Confused.com, quick quote.
Now you see it. Now you, see it.
Yes, Betty, that's the point. We don't hide our charges.
With a loan from Wonga.com, you choose how much you want to borrow and for how long, and we tell you the total cost.
You know exactly what you have to pay up front, so there are no surprises.
For a short-term loan on your terms, visit Wonga.com. Wonga.com. Straight talking money.
Fungal nail problems? New Canispro Fungal Nail Ointment removes the discoloured part of the nail in 3 weeks.
At these prices, you won't be able to help yourself. A kilo of chicken breast fillets for $3.95 or 3 for £10. Farm Foods, great food at amazing prices.
Where will you be when the world comes to Glasgow? When a city becomes an arena? When legs turn to pistons and feet turn to springs? When big guys slip into wee trunks? When fists fly? When things get tough? When underdogs have their day? When millions watch 1 in a million? Where will you be? To be there, go to Glasgow2014.com. Tickets from £15. Glasgow packages also available.
This bank holiday, do you know where I can get bargain price booze around here? No. Brilliant. Well, you get a 20-pack of Carlsberg for £12 and packs of Strongbow for a tenner. Any idea at all?
No.
OK. Jim Beam and Red Stag for $12.99 each? And famous name wines, $4.49 each. We'll spin this, will that... No. Doritos are £1 a bag? You know the answer, don't you?
Yep.
You do. Don't look at me, just say the name of the shop. Say the name of the shop.
This jackpot needs to go now.
Blimey. Hey up, I'm the jackpot genie, and I've got over 2 million quid to get rid of quick.
It can't stay in here.
All right. Join 888 Casino. Get £88 free, and you can play to win.
Oh, it's growing!
Hurry!
Help the Genie and play his Millionaire Jackpot game with £88 free. Only at 888casino.com.
It's a wish come true. Oof.
This year, get ready for 2 times the fun.
Let's shut them down.
I hate when that happens.
The Smurfs.
A bedside manner is a concept completely alien to Dr. Ellingham.
Hello?
He's patronising and completely disempathetic.
It's not even a word.
I think it's very well written for a 10-year-old.
Doc Martin, coming soon on ITV.
With the winter of discontent still fresh in the memory, and with a thumping great parliamentary majority on her side, Mrs. Thatcher determined to rein in the unions once and for all, starting with the mine workers. But she'd only make her move when she was certain she'd win. In early 1984, she was ready.
The miners' strike was one of the longest and most bitter in British history. After a year, the last of the striking miners returned to work, defeated. Mrs. Thatcher had won. The power of the unions was broken.
Industry was part of the cohesive part of Scottish society, and I think that Thatcherism was seen as breaking up Scottish society. I put it as high as that people thought that this party, personified by this woman, was at war with Scotland.
Margaret Thatcher did have a problem. She started from the presumption that the patriotism that mattered was that of the United Kingdom as a whole. She found it difficult to comprehend that within the United Kingdom you can have an English patriotism, a Welsh, Scottish patriotism, that can also have a political dimension to it.
By the mid-80s, that political dimension seemed to consist of demonising Margaret Thatcher at every turn, even when she was doing something Scots approved of, like enabling them to buy their council house.
He's going to be an engineer.
It was very popular in my constituency. People did say, right, I've got the chance to buy a house, but it didn't cause them to want to vote Conservative, I'm afraid.
She was disappointed that the response to her in Scotland was so negative. She was saying, but look, we're doing this, we're doing that, we're doing that. And there was always a list of things which we were doing in Scotland, which we hoped that the Scots would appreciate, but they didn't.
Then a counter-argument emerged, and yet again this came from culture rather than from politics. In this case it came not so much from theatre culture, but from pop music.
And now for something totally weird and unusual, identical twins singing. Craig and Charles Reid, alias the Proclaimers, come from up to Mupty in Scotland.
I've been so sad since you said my accent was bad. He's worn a frown, this Caledonian clown.
When the Proclaimers went on the tube and performed in network television on this show that was a must-watch show, it was unbelievable critical moment in Scottish popular culture history. I mean, literally that big. And one of the reasons it was that big was to do with their voices. It was the first time ever that I had heard two brothers, in this case, singing in what was in effect a Scots accent.
Ironically, all this was happening at a time when the SNP and Scottish independence were once again almost an electoral irrelevance.
From 79, it was hellish to be an SNP canvasser. You'd ring a doorbell or knock a door and it would open and you would get the worst that was in their guts. You know, you lot, da 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 da, let Thatcher in, you'll get down the path, this sort of thing. The hatred for the SNP could be felt on the doorstep.
In the 1980s, Scotland still believed that the best way to counter Thatcherism was to vote Labour. in ever-increasing numbers, sending 50 Labour MPs to Westminster the 1987 general election. But with a promise to replace the domestic rates with a poll tax, a tax that would be introduced in Scotland first, Mrs Thatcher was returned to power, again on a landslide of English votes.
Scotland votes Labour every general election, right? And what do we get? A Tory government. Well, I would just like to say thank you to the English for letting us have a wee shot in our general election. Makes us feel kind of involved, you see.
Aware that she had a problem in Scotland, the Prime Minister embarked on a charm offensive north of the border that included a trip to Hampden Park for the 1988 Scottish Cup final between Celtic and Dundee United.
And the chant, which began at the Celtic end, I'm proud to say, Mrs Thatcher, stick your poll tax up your...
I am sure she has enjoyed herself enormously.
Perhaps it wasn't a huge surprise that the Prime Minister's charm offensive in Scotland had failed. Not only was the poll tax looming, it was going to hit Scotland a year ahead of the rest of the UK.
The choosing of Scotland as the guinea pig was guaranteed to put the tin hat on the feelings of the Scottish people that our countries were moving apart.
It was a pretty dumb political decision in retrospect, but the reasons for it were nothing to do with guinea pigs. It was to do with trying to deal with the controversy over the rating system as soon as possible.
Here's the rub. Whether it was intended or not, Scottish people believed it was intended. And that played to a really, really big thing that goes right through the heart of Scotland like writing through rock. And that is the idea that it was done to us.
But unwilling to advocate law-breaking, Labour resisted pressure to support mass non-payment. And in the middle of all this, for reasons best known to themselves, in November 1988, Labour chose to hold a by-election here in Glasgow Govan when they moved the sitting MP to a job in the European Commission.
This was one of the safest Labour seats in the United Kingdom, and under normal circumstances, a shoo-in for Labour. But these were not normal circumstances.
Jim Siller's Scottish National Party, no poll tax, 14,000...
What the people in Govan want me to tell Thatcher inside that building is that they regard her and her policies as malicious, wicked and evil, and she'll be told that.
But Jim Siller's recapturing of the iconic Glasgow Govan seat for the SNP didn't change government policy, and on April Fool's Day 1989, the poll tax became law in Scotland.
Poll tax in! Poll tax in!
A year after its introduction in Scotland, the poll tax arrived in England, where hundreds of thousands of protesters descended on London to register their opposition.
I think that the poll tax was actually the breaking point, not just because we had it first, but because when it was applied in England and found to be wanting, it was then stopped. So I think that was a very, very important moment in the whole process of differentiating between the politics of Scotland and the politics of the rest of the UK.
It was a disaster for the Conservative Party and may mean that they're unelectable in Scotland for a very, very long time, maybe unelectable ever again.
I'll give you one of these wee doormats. Well, you at least think about it, eh?
But there was at least one Scottish institution for whom supporting the Conservatives would always be an option.
Hugh, crazy prices take a swatch at our stutting discounts. Okay.
Conservative.
One.
Cheers, Rob. All the best. If you want a wee matching set for round the toilet bowl, see you at the general.
Rab C wasn't the only one being shunned by former friends in 1990. Fearing that in the wake of the poll tax she was now an electoral liability, the Conservative cabinet turned on and deposed their leader. With Mrs Thatcher replaced by the relatively unknown John Major, the 1992 general election looked to be in the bag for Labour. Unfortunately, Neil Kinnock acted as if it already was. In stark contrast, the new Prime Minister John Major toured the country on his soapbox. To the absolute astonishment of the Labour leadership, it worked. The result was a devastating blow for Scottish Home Rule. Kinnock resigned as Labour leader to be replaced by the pro-devolution Scot, John Smith.
I passionately want to see that Scottish Parliament established. It is, for me, unfinished business.
By late 1993, Labour had a massive 23% lead over the Tories. But John Smith's time in charge of the Labour Party was cut tragically short when he died of a heart attack in May 1994.
Good evening. The death of Labour leader John Smith has stunned not just the world of politics, but the whole country.
The people know they have lost a friend, someone who was on their side. They know it, and they feel it.
To replace Smith, the Labour Party turned to Tony Blair, who, though born in Edinburgh, wasn't instinctively pro-devolution.
I never thought that Tony Blair really had any great understanding of Scotland any more than Margaret Thatcher had. But he was a good deal cannier on the Scottish subjects than she had been, and he saw the time had come when the English system, the English machine, had to move. But I don't think his heart was in it.
Whether his heart was in it or not, Scottish devolution took a massive step closer when in 1997, Tony Blair's New Labour swept to power in a stunning election victory.
I believe in Britain, and tonight the people of Britain are uniting behind New Labour.
In that election, every one of the remaining 10 Conservative MPs in Scotland lost their seat. It was a Tory wipeout.
In Scottish terms, that was as powerful a signal as has ever been sent to the Westminster government. As an endorsement for Home Rule, it was huge.
But before Labour could do anything, the people would have to endorse the Parliament in a two-question referendum, one to establish the Parliament, the other to give it tax-varying powers. But just 2 weeks before the poll,
we have reports from Paris that Diana, Princess of Wales, has been killed in a car accident.
Campaigning was immediately suspended as a mark of respect.
The all-new Citroën C4 Picasso. Discover the world inside.
Citroën. Créative technologie.
My name's Ben. I live a normal teenage life, play football on a Sunday, go out with my friends. Life skills is a way of helping young teens like me find jobs and work experience. In the future, hopefully, I see myself maybe a counsellor or art therapist or social worker. Life skills just give you that little helping hand to get to where you want to be. You go on the Barclays Life Skills website. It's so simple. It's a way of following your dreams, to be honest. I just went onto the website and logged on.
Good morning, sir.
Jeff. Sir Jeff. Sir Jeff, it is indeed an honor to behold thee, brave knight. Sir Jeff, where headeth thee, pray tell?
Birmingham?
Oh, a noble quest indeed. Enterprise! We'll pick you up!
Perfumes, colours, harsh chemicals can all lead to irritation. Simple, the UK's favourite face care range, leaves out the unnecessary. Simple uses only our purest possible ingredients with multivitamins that love your skin. And now new softer than ever Simple cleansing wipes have multivitamins too. Simple cleansing wipes. Is your skincare simple?
Throughout the day, your eyes can lose moisture, leaving them feeling dry and tired. Optrex Actimist is clinically proven to restore the moisture your eyes need. Relieve, refresh, and revive your eyes with Optrex Actimist.
I love it, especially all the new furniture. Oh, thanks. All from Harvey's. Ask her if they got it on credit. No. Go on, ask. If you don't, I will. We don't need to know. I need to know. You've had too much to drink. Did you get any of it on credit? Would you like another? Yes, everything. Took it over 4 years. Drink. And it was interest-free.
Harvey's, giving you more. For less, tell them there's 4 years free credit. I think they know.
There's no time like now. Take a moment, take a chance, and you could collect £1 million. The new Monopoly scratch card from the National Lottery.
Get every Barclays Premier League goal on the go, plus shed loads of family deals and giveaways, plus the Sun on mobile, tablet and online. Just £1 for a month. Sun Plus.
Buy it, lick it, twirl it, bite it, share it, take it, melt it, love it. The new ice cream cone from Burger King for just 49p. Get yours today.
To enjoy an 80% safe driver discount, chat to Churchill.
With your feet in the air, your head on the ground.
I need to know if I'm looking at accident or intention.
Where is my mind? Where is my mind?
We're more in the dark than he is.
Brand new Vera. Starts Sunday at 8 on ITV.
Hundreds of thousands of people lined the streets of London for the funeral of Diana, Princess of Wales. Any fears that the death of the princess would affect the outcome of the referendum proved to be unfounded, as the votes piled up for a double yes.
The result was a landslide for the Yes campaigners. 74% of voters backed a Scottish Parliament. 63% supported tax-varying powers.
The people of Scotland have delivered us their trust. There shall be a Scottish Parliament. I like that.
In the first elections to that new Parliament, Labour emerged as the big winners.
Then let us pray that come it may.
And so, on May 12, 1999, under the watchful eye of veteran nationalist Winnie Ewing, the Scottish Parliament met.
The Scottish Parliament, adjourned on the 25th day of March in the year 1707, is hereby reconvened.
The architect of devolution, Labour's Donald Dewar, was elected Scotland's First Minister, as Labour formed a coalition with the Scottish Liberal Democrats.
I think you must be finished with that, all right?
But these new best friends almost fell out when the spiralling cost and the scale of the problems surrounding Dewar's chosen site and design for the new Parliament emerged. The press had a field day. Then, in October 2000, the fledgling, embattled Parliament received another hammer blow.
The First Minister, Donald Dewar, is dead.
Tonight, Scotland is a nation in mourning.
His replacement, Henry McLeish, lasted barely a year in the job before himself being replaced by Jack McConnell. McConnell took office just as the world became a smaller and more dangerous place. The tragedy of 9/11 set in motion events that, although out with the competence of the Scottish Parliament, would become significant issues in Scottish politics, as Tony Blair, buoyed by a second general election victory, became a player in the international stage and an enthusiastic supporter of America's so-called war on terror.
Saddam Hussein is in breach of the United Nations resolutions on weapons of mass destruction, that is chemical, biological, nuclear weapons.
In the run-up to the 2003 Scottish elections, Iraq became a major campaign issue. And just 3 weeks before the poll, Iraq was invaded.
Just before 3 o'clock our time this morning, the air raid siren sounded in Baghdad.
I had three big worries about the 2003 election campaign. One was that it would be completely overshadowed by the Iraq war and a general perception of Labour in Westminster. The second was that there was a very clear feeling amongst the population of Scotland that the Parliament had underperformed under Labour leadership in the first 4 years. And the third was the building.
In those 2003 elections, it was the minority parties like the Scottish Socialists who celebrated, while the major parties suffered. But it was Labour, again in coalition with the Liberal Democrats, who were back in power. It was a much weakened coalition, as questions about the Iraq war refused to go away. And going into the 2007 elections, the SNP leader Alex Salmond set about exposing what he saw as Labour's greatest weakness, Tony Blair.
He should be called to account in democratic terms and his conduct examined.
In a dramatic night of counting the 2007 Scottish elections, Labour and the SNP were neck and neck right up until the very last declaration.
David Thompson, Alex Salmond for First Minister.
The Scottish National Party have won the Scottish elections by the narrowest of margins.
The SNP were the biggest party in Holyrood by just one seat, and Alex Salmond will be Scotland's First Minister.
I think there is a new dawn breaking across our country, and it's the obligation not just of the Scottish National Party, but of a range of progressive forces in Scottish politics to seize that moment.
Not only was there a new First Minister in Edinburgh, but there was also a new Prime Minister in Westminster. Labour believed that Gordon Brown's elevation following Tony Blair's departure would assist their fight back north of the border. But Labour's journey back was never going to be easy, particularly as the repatriation of young men and women from Iraq continued to fuel public anger about the war. And an uncompromising play by the National Theatre of Scotland about the experience of Scottish soldiers in Iraq became a worldwide sensation.
Now, since 1745, the Black Watches fought all over the world. We've mainly been used in tribal conflicts. Well, we're good at them. We're in tribe ourselves.
I have to say Black Watch is one of the finest things I've ever seen in my life. It was intrinsically Scottish and intrinsically international all at the same time. There was no couthiness about it.
Hey, hold on. I think they found someone in this car.
One unintended consequence of Tony Blair's foreign policy was in pushing some Labour supporters towards the idea of Scottish independence.
I was always a Labour voter, as simple as that. I voted for Labour, now voted. For the first time I could vote, I voted for Labour and nobody else. But I think as long as we remain within the British Union, as it were, that's always a possibility. We will just always be the, sort of basically the mercenaries for the Americans, whatever dastardly nonsense they get up to. And as an independent Scotland, I think the chance of that happening, that shame being visited upon us again, is much, much less.
But in 2009, rather than being dragged reluctantly onto the world stage by Westminster, the Scottish Government put itself centre stage when Justice Secretary Kenny MacAskill approved the controversial release of the Lockerbie bomber from Greenock Prison on compassionate grounds.
It's not something that was done for political reasons. Why did they grant the compassionate release? Because he'd granted other compassionate releases. And he'd be determined, come hell or high water, come the State Department, Westminster or whoever, that he would follow what was right and proper under the precepts of Scots law.
The release of Megrahi was condemned by many, including the most powerful man on the planet.
We have been in contact with the Scottish Government indicating that we objected to this. and we thought it was a mistake.
Well, despite intense U.S. objection, the Lockerbie bomber returned home yesterday to indeed a hero's welcome.
I think the Al Megrahi decision was deeply damaging for us internationally. Everywhere I went, people were asking me about this decision that had just been made in Scotland. But it was with astonishment, it wasn't with admiration.
The first big test of Scottish public opinion post-Megrahi was the 2010 general election, when after 13 years of New Labour, England returned to the Conservatives in huge numbers. Scotland, meanwhile, swung to Labour, who with a whopping 42% share of the Scottish vote, polled more than double that of the SNP.
The public have turned their back on the SNP. This is a day that the Scottish public have said no more to the SNP. We've had you in power for these years. You're a novelty that's worn off.
Because of the victory and success in Westminster, many people felt, well, if you're voting Labour for one election, you'll vote for the other. But that's the secret of Scottish politics just now. That simply doesn't happen.
Tonight, a defining moment for Scotland. The SNP sweeps the nation, and this Parliament will deliver a referendum on independence.
The SNP can finally claim that we have lived up to that accolade as the National Party of Scotland. You ready? Ready for you.
In October 2012, the First Minister Alex Salmond and Prime Minister David Cameron shook hands on a historic deal that gave the Scottish Parliament the power to hold a referendum on Scottish independence.
This is a great opportunity, a historic opportunity. If we vote yes, then we've got a platform to mobilise our natural and human resources to build a very special society here in Scotland. Will everything be, flowing with whisky and oil, and will everything be perfect? No, it won't all be perfect. We'll dare say we'll make a few mistakes along the way, but that combination of these natural resources and the human talent and ingenuity of our people should give people confidence that they and their families will be better off.
I care passionately about keeping the United Kingdom together. I profoundly believe that we are stronger together. I think Scotland would be better off in the United Kingdom, I do think that, but I think the United Kingdom would be so much worse off without Scotland. I mean, it'd be much easier to try and be the Prime Minister of England. The Conservatives tend to have a majority in English seats, even in a pretty bad year. But, this is about who we are. The United Kingdom has achieved extraordinary things over centuries. Together, we punch above our weight in the world. And the truth is, Scotland punches above its weight within the United Kingdom.
We know what's going to happen if Scotland stays within this union. Our position will diminish. That not just because the Tories will be elected again, but any Westminster government will not put this country of ours first. There'll be nuclear weapons on the Clyde for 50 years, according to the Tory Defence Secretary, and the resources required to change this nation will not be forthcoming.
But suddenly to turn our neighbours into foreigners rather than family members, it's to me it's unthinkable. And so it goes way beyond politics, way beyond party political interest. It is simply about who we are as a people and why that's something special.
Well, just how special being part of that British Union is to the people of Scotland will become clear in just over a year's time. But there's little doubt that since 1945, politically, culturally, economically, the two largest nations of this United Kingdom have drifted apart. And the future of this once unshakable union that won an empire and 2 world wars has been questioned as never before. Well, in September 2014, we'll know the answer. That's when Scots alone take what could be the biggest political decision to affect the United Kingdom in 300 years.
Okay, put the singing to one side. Got a new way to tell people how they could save on the insurance?
Merchandise.
Here he is. Watch his mouth.
And I've got a mate in Swansea who can do us a deal on these bad boys.
Guys, we need to make some changes. Fast. A little ambiance and dinner. Delicious baked to perfection from Bird's Eye. Now just 5 minutes in the microwave. What's not to love? Make more of midweek with Bird's Eye.
At these prices, you won't be able to help yourself. 54 delicious rashers of unsmoked bacon for only £6. Farm Foods, great food at amazing prices.
I wasn't that bothered about my stretch marks, but I bought bio oil on a whim. And I'm so pleased I did. Now it's always the first thing on my list.
Bio oil helps improve the appearance of scars and stretch marks.
Got your ticket, got your suitcase, Manchester, and smile.
Oh, look at the time, we're going to be late now, we're going to miss the start of the game.
Pretend that you don't know.
Kiss your hand, Luke. Look, kiss your hand. I spy with my love.
Shut up, Ryan.
Hello, Bill. Oh, enjoy your day.
To follow is to love. To the millions of fans who make the Barclays Premier League what it is, we say thank you.
A state-of-the-art smartphone, an electronic book reader, some house keys, a tablet, more tablets, a cuddly toy.
Must we do this every time we leave the house?
Oh, yes.
To add personal possessions cover to your home insurance, chat to Churchill.
I've got £2 million to get rid of, quick! Hurry!
Play Millionaire Jackpot with £88 free, only at 888casino.com.
I just love shopping. I get so excited.
I do.
You have a 10-second period of feeling bad, but then you look in the bag again and you're like, oh, it's worth it.
People always ask me the same question. Hey, Kev, when's Footloose 2 coming out? But most of all, people ask,
Hey, Kev, what's in the shed?
data, lots of data. It's a shed load of data. Exactly what we're giving pay-as-you-go customers on 3G this summer. 1 gig of free data when you top up a tenner. Typical. A gig of free data when you top up a tenner on Orange Pay-as-you-go.
So why Whitechapel? Why the bloody history of murders? Some believe that the gates to hell can be found in the shadow of Christchurch. When the gates open, who knows what will crawl out and who will become the next chapter in my history of murder in Whitechapel.
Right, you, is it? Oh, right, okay. I thought it was someone stuck under a tree. Right.
When we got there was two guys. There was a guy out in the open area and there was a guy on the tree line. I thought he was just indicating the casualty was inside the tree line. It turns out the casualty was actually that guy, which was quite a shock, and told him to get down as soon as possible.
Unbelievably, 24-year-old Brent has managed to get out from under the tree and drag himself 30 feet to the edge of the forest.
Stop. Put it up. And where's the pain? In your knee. You feel it crack here?
Considering a hefty 80-foot tree has crushed his leg, Brent's remarkably calm. Winchman Lee's trained to ambulance technician level, so will do what he can to treat him until they get to hospital.
If you don't want to cut him, mate, we'll have to take him off. Happy.
The first thing he needs to do is cut open Brent's trousers, but thinking how much they cost, Brent's not keen.
Get these bits off. Just leave him, mate. I'll get a splint in you. The kneecap's slightly off to the left. That's swollen up massively, you can see there. Right, pain score. What is that? That's what's happening.
He's badly injured, so the transfer to the helicopter could be painful.
Go fast a second. Sure you don't want any pain relief? No, I'm fine. I'm going to be moving you. It might be in a bit of pain, but just let me know when I've got some else. And we offered him analgesia, but he refused it. He said he was fine. But yeah, he was a pretty tough guy, but big lumberjack, as expected, really.
Brent's been a lumberjack all his working life. Astonishingly, he's showing no signs of pain in what Lee believes to be a broken tibia in his lower leg.
So the tree sprang out when you was cutting?
Sprung against me. Is it like, say, if you were cutting this one with a chainsaw, it sprung this way, bent him at the ankle and whacked him at the knee and knocked him flat.
Brent needs hospital treatment. But there's a problem. They need to get him clear of the tree so they can winch him onto the aircraft. First, they must secure his leg.
Just placing a back splint on him to immobilise his leg so it doesn't move in our transit. Basically, there's loads of little tiny balls in here, and then you suck the air out. Creates a vacuum, obviously, and then immobilises him. Is that okay? Yeah, no. Is that compressing at the bottom of your leg as well? Can you feel it? Yeah, I can feel it.
Thankfully, Brent's workmates are on hand to help perform a lumberjack lift.
Get him that arm over your shoulder, to the side, and you cross arms at the bottom.
But being moved closer to the helicopter without pain relief could be absolute agony.
Raise me, 1, 2, 3.
They might need a change of plan.
Gonna slip. I get on, you'll be all right.
I'm not.
Later, the Navy's search and rescue team attempt to recover the injured lumberjack.
Now continue down 20 feet slowly.
And the police are on the hunt for more thieves targeting farms for valuable equipment.
Well, I realise the chances of seeing it again are slim.
But first, it's over to A&E, where a young farmer has had a serious accident.
There's something happened in the face.
Like the police in this rural region of Scotland, the staff at Dumfries Royal Infirmary look after 148,000 people, dotted throughout an area roughly the size of Devon. It's just after 6 in the evening, and Dr. Neil Campbell is working the night shift in A&E. He's been a consultant here for over 2 years, so has seen his fair share of countryside incidents.
The trauma that we see is somewhat different to a city centre. We see road traffic accidents, mountain biking accidents, farming and forestry injuries. With the rural road network, we will often get people who have been involved in much higher speed collisions than they would have happened in city congestion.
Agriculture provides more than half of our food needs, and in this part of the UK, farming and forestry are the main sources of income. Agricultural accidents are common, and today a young sheep farmer suffered a bad one in a field.
I've been asked by one of the junior doctors to have a look at a gentleman who's been in a quad biking accident on a farm where I believe something's been thrown up and hit him in the face.
Like many farmers, 32-year-old David needs a quad bike to get around his farm. Whilst checking on his sheep at dusk, an object flew out of nowhere, giving him a nasty injury. He's since been given morphine to help ease the pain.
Can you tell me what happened today?
I was going down there, I was going to chase sheep with my motorbike and there was something happened in the face.
Do you know what it was?
I think it was a branch.
Did it knock you off the bike?
No.
No. You stopped the bike then and didn't lose control of it?
No, we've got a visor on the bike and I think it took the brunt of it.
Did the visor get smashed?
See, I don't know.
You don't know?
I didn't check it out, I just tried to get back up to the farm to get help.
Despite the blow to his head, David managed to drive his quad bike back to the farm. If he'd been stuck in the field at night, it could have been a very different story.
I just wanted to clarify, you were brought here, I think, by one of your family, is that right?
Yeah.
It took David's wife almost an hour to drive them 20 miles from their farm near Lockerbie in rush hour.
I managed to get back up to the farm and get my dad, who got my wife, to bring Donna to bring me out at the hospital.
But the bumpy journey back over farmland to get help could have made his injuries even worse.
Can I just ask, where are you feeling sore? Obviously your face. Is it just the face?
Yeah, my face and my head.
Generally the whole of the head, or any neck or back pain at all?
Not really.
Although David's pain is mainly in his head, Dr. Campbell needs to make sure he doesn't have a more serious injury in his neck.
How does that feel?
Better.
Good. It's a good sign. I'm just going to press. Let me know if there's anywhere that's particularly sore. Is that okay around here?
Yeah.
It's not the first time David's been to hospital because of his quad bike.
I've had a couple of wee tumbles on it. In fact, I broke my foot earlier on at the beginning of the year on the quad bike. It's quite a dangerous job, I suppose. But it's maybe just that I'm off the accident prone.
With a nasty head injury like this, concussion, a minor brain injury, is common. Neil must check for symptoms like nausea, dizziness and vision problems.
Okay. Open your eyes really wide, really wide. Keep your head still and follow my finger. So watch my finger and come all the way across. Tell me if you see double. You might.
I see two of your arm.
And then up we come.
Yeah.
And down. We need to have a look at those wounds and get them sorted out. I want to see if underneath that the face has not been injured. And I just feel inside the mouth as well. Let me know if this is sore. Don't bite me, just raise a hand. Sore. Okay, on that side?
David's sent to have x-rays of the bones in his face to check for any breaks.
Quad bike accidents are not uncommon. Certainly I've seen a few since starting here. He has been wearing a protective helmet and it does seem to be isolated to the face. He's not got any neck or back pain. So I think we'll focus in on that.
The x-rays have come back with no sign of fractures. The quad bike's visor protected David from more serious damage. He's now been cleaned up and his wounds sutured together.
So I think you've been stitched up.
Yeah.
How are you feeling? Still a bit rotten?
I keep taking dizzy spells.
Okay.
Keep going fair. Dizzy and funny, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Quite. Aye.
I'm not surprised that the most common simple symptoms after any kind of head injury are mild headache and dizziness. You're nice and alert. I'm not noticing anything too untoward, but the fact you're still feeling a bit rotten, still have some headache, I'd prefer that we watched you overnight and make sure that settles down. And it gives us two advantages. It makes us that if things are not settling down, we can and think about whether we need to do any extra tests. And it means we can also make sure the eye's doing okay in the morning as well.
Yeah.
David will be kept in and monitored overnight. But later we'll see another young lad who's also had to make the 12-mile journey from Lockerbie.
Are you able to move your arm at all?
At another farm incident, PC's Ross Dixon and Stuart Ray have been investigating a break-in at an empty, isolated farmhouse. The property's been ripped apart by thieves who have stolen all its copper piping. A common countryside crime.
We'll go around the neighbouring farms, see if they've seen anything suspicious. Put out a media release, and we'll go around scrap metal dealers as well, see if they've had anyone in with copper piping, see what we can do from there.
Ross knows from his 4 years on the rural beat that cases like these can be incredibly difficult to solve, especially without witnesses.
The woman that discovered it this morning said that it was all okay yesterday.
469, go ahead on.
So that would suggest that it's obviously happened overnight. What we need to do is try and get the timescales narrowed down a wee bit more. This is obviously a used farmyard. I would suggest that a farmer would have been here mid-evening last night, so we can try and narrow the timescales down a wee bit more.
Ross is in luck when a local farmer turns up.
When was the last time you were here? Last night? Yesterday afternoon. Yesterday afternoon? 1:30. Right, okay. Have you had anyone coming up lately?
Well, there was people up here yesterday, but the house in the...
For sale,
aye. And they were
viewing?
Having a look round.
Right. Right, okay. No problem. And did you take it there was an estate agent here with them to show them around and stuff like that?
I'm not sure who exactly. There was 2 cars. 2 men and a woman.
Stuart wants to check if yesterday's viewing by 2 men and a woman was genuine, but it's Sunday and the estate agents aren't open. It could be completely innocent, but either way, identifying the threesome could help their investigation.
The amount of piping, amount of copper they've taken will be worth possibly £1,000 worth of copper, but the actual value for redoing the house with the piping is much more than that.
With limited evidence and no solid leads, catching these thieves is going to be very difficult.
I've seen the crime out to check for fingerprints, but unfortunately there's no fingerprints anywhere. It's in the middle of nowhere, rural area. They're not wearing any, they're wearing gloves, they're not leaving anything behind for us to go on. It gets very, very difficult. However, we still investigate it as thoroughly as we can.
Crimes like these, in remote rural locations, can be hard to solve. Prevention is often the only cure, especially in the case of another farmer we'll see later, who left valuable equipment out in plain view.
I noticed you're not securing the door.
A detached farmhouse 200 metres from a road is nothing compared to the remoteness of isolated woodland. Lumberjack Brent has been seriously injured, at least a mile from the nearest track. Helicopter rescue is his best option. Winchman Lee Haggerty from the Navy's search and rescue team is preparing to lift him.
Sure you don't want any pain relief?
No, I'm fine. Just
we're going to be moving you, it might be in a bit of pain, but just let me know when I've got some nurse.
Lee's stabilised Brent's leg with a vacuum splint, ready to move him. Now he arranges for the winch kit to be lowered.
Let's get some equipment sent down from the aircraft so we can get Brent safely recovered.
The downdraft from the helicopter's 9-metre rotor blades will make the transfer across very rough terrain even more difficult. Lee needs all the help he can get.
Get him, that arm over your shoulder, to the side, and you cross arms at the bottom.
Despite now describing his pain level as an agonising 8 out of 10, tough guy Brent has refused pain relief. But he may soon regret that choice.
Are you happy, you two?
No,
Gonna
it's
slip.
gonna slip, gonna slip. I can on, you'll be alright. I'm not much.
Right, okay.
I can do you slip.
Do like the old
That's something to be a hoop.
underneath together. Ready? Ready? Go. Go on.
I can move like I'm sinking.
Go on.
The environment's horrendous. When you're on the ground, it's undulating, you've got the tree stumps everywhere. There's a smallish stream which we had to extract him across. And being only 3 guys there, he was a pretty big lad as well. It was pretty difficult.
The guys on the ground are struggling to carry Brent between them without causing him even more pain. Observer Phil must guide the helicopter in as close to the trees as he dare.
Right only, 25 yards, and continue down 20 feet slowly.
Every member of the crew uses focused effort to pull off this dangerous manoeuvre. They must steer clear of the treetops, flying just 130 feet above the ground.
7 yards, 5 yards, forward right, and back 2, 4 yards. Okay, you just tipped over the trees.
2 o'clock, right at the top of the tree.
Easy, easy, steady there, good position.
Forward and left, so I'm afraid we'll just have to risk it where we are now.
Hey, firm, you've just got one tree on the nose at about 20 yards.
It was a horrendous position to winch, not only getting the winch in, but extracting the casualty. We would have gone through the tree line, and it's too dangerous, really. When we had another option of the high line, which basically allows the aircraft to be away on an angle, and then we can slowly take him out to a safer area before bringing him back up to the aircraft.
Brent is put in a cradle attached to a weighted line, or high line, so he's as stable as possible, whilst the aircraft is in a tilted position to keep them clear of the trees.
Okay.
High line's not fouled. 40 foot to the aircraft. Easy and steady there. In fact, you continue left only 10 yards slowly. Okay, raise the winch, just level with the door. Okay, and stand by. You take winch control. We have. Right, lower the winch. Lower the winch. Stop the winch. Stop the winch.
Now Brent safe, the crew head for Glasgow.
Get lost 177, A firm, are happy with Glasgow Southern General, over.
Lee hooks Brent up to monitor his heart rate.
Bit of weather on the moor, and Southern General, we're going to come straight along the Clyde anyway.
It's taken the Royal Navy Search and Rescue Team just 25 minutes, rather than 2 hours by road, to safely deliver Brent to the waiting medical team at Glasgow's Southern General.
Brilliant example of how we train hard, fight easy, and we brought all the skills together there, so it was excellent.
Brave Brent will now be examined and x-rayed to find out the extent of his injuries. From a common countryside accident to a common countryside crime. Investigations continue on the isolated farmhouse raided for its copper piping. Now PC Ross Dixon's been called to another farm 10 miles away. This time he's joined by PC of 15 years, Matt Tate.
Just off to another farm where there's been a theft of a pressure washer valued at about £2,000.
Agricultural theft is a common rural crime, costing the UK over £50 million a year. Power tools and machinery are some of the most popular items stolen from farms, as one farmer, Alan, has just discovered to his cost.
How you get on? Pressure washer.
I was at the market when my son phoned to say it was missing, and so I mentioned to one or two when I was there, actually.
Was it chained up, secured?
No, it's just sitting there.
You had anyone around just looking for scrap or anything
No,
like
I can't think. Nobody springs to mind.
So if you want to show us where it was at, where it was?
Aye.
It seems Alan was lucky nothing else was stolen.
I noticed you're not securing the door.
Well, there is a lot for it, but...
Aye, but you've got that driving lawnmower in there, you know what I mean? It's an attractive bit of equipment.
Like the empty farmhouse, this farm is away from the main road. With valuable gear in plain view, when nobody's home, it becomes an easy target.
Just sits here, actually.
How deep is it? So then it's about what?
It's maybe...
It's about 3 foot wide by...
by 5 feet. It would take 2 people to lift it. But I realise the chances of seeing it again. It's slim. That's it there, look.
They've dragged it down and then...
Yeah.
Costing £2,000 and weighing around 100 kilograms, a pressure washer is no easy piece of kit to steal. It would have taken 2 people and a van to get it away.
No, it is a heavy thing.
Aye. I'll get this taken off, we'll get some details off you, and then...
They has stated that they were broken into a few years ago, and they've made an effort to try and keep the place secure. It is challenging to try and deal with this when farmers and stuff are keeping valuable equipment out in plain view that people can come in and just see it and just take it.
It's always best to hide or secure expensive kit to prevent yourself becoming a victim. Back at the station, Matt's next step is spreading the word.
I will contact local businesses, any outlets that I think they could possibly be trying to sell the pressure washer, and then also put on the serial number down to Police National Computer.
The police have set up an alert system, Farm Watch, to help prevent crimes like this. So on a follow-up visit, Matt takes Farm Watch officer PC Derek Hughes. There are around 7,500 farms in Dumfriesshire, but only 450 are signed up to the Farm Watch scheme.
Once you sign up with Farm Watch, we take your mobile number, and if we get a suspicious incident whereby your pressure washer was stolen, if somebody had seen a van going up, we could put a message out via text message to every farmer in the area saying we're looking for a white van, registration number such and such.
Anything that helps keep criminals away is worth having a go at.
Finding stolen farm equipment in a region that's 70% agricultural can be like looking for a needle in a haystack. Now Alan has joined Farm Watch, it should help stop an incident like this from happening to him again. Protecting rural populations is a challenge for all the emergency services, where huge distances and scattered communities mean staff are stretched across a huge range of incidents. In Dumfries, A&E medics deal with 100 patients a day. Earlier, we saw Dr. Neil Campbell treat accident-prone farmer David after a quad bike accident. Now, 21-year-old Andrew has travelled 12 miles from Lockerbie with a nasty shoulder injury caused in a rather unusual way. Dr. Jed Garbutt, who's lived in Dumfries for 6 months, is taking the case.
Hello, Andrew. Just come to have a quick look at your shoulder. I've heard from my colleagues that you've dislocated it, and it's something you've done before.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you tell me what's actually happened today?
Dropped a glass and I tried to catch it and it just popped back at place. I just heard it click and it just went.
So you were just reaching for something?
It's the second time in 6 months that Andrew's dislocated his shoulder.
Now, how did you dislocate it originally?
I was climbing up the ladder, I was painting the ceiling.
Right.
And I fell for it.
And you fell that time? Are you able to move your arm at all?
Right, I tried before, but...
Yeah, well, I'm not going to examine you. I think what we'll do, first of all, is to get you x-rayed, and that'll tell us whereabouts the shoulder is lying relative to the joint, okay? All right, we'll get that organised, then we'll come back and see you.
Okay.
Okay.
In there, hang a right, then hang a left.
It's quite interesting in the mechanism of injury isn't a fall or anything particularly traumatic. I mean, what he's telling me is he's actually just reached for something and thrown the shoulder out. And what that implies is that there's a degree of laxity, looseness in the joint.
Shoulder dislocations need immediate medical attention. Andrew has just 2 A&E departments in rural Dumfries and Galloway he can go to, whilst patients in Greater London have 34.
Head on through there. Stab your back right against that board for me. That's lovely. Are nice and still there?
This is an X-ray of Andrew, and you can see that the head of the humerus here isn't actually sitting in the joint. It should actually be sat on this cup here. It's actually jumped forward and jumped out. But our concern now is to get him analgesed, make sure that he doesn't have any pain, try and make sure that he's relaxed, and then we'll try and pop this bone back into its socket.
Having a dislocated joint can be agony, so getting Andrew as relaxed as possible is key, and that means medication.
A lot of time people think that it's brute force that does it, and it's exactly the opposite. What you want is to get the patient comfortable. So we take our time. You need to be patient, and if the patient is relaxed, it's a much easier procedure. So are you in much pain at the moment? Yeah, a wee bit. All right, well, we need to get on top of that and try and get you very relaxed. Yeah. The more relaxed you are, the easier it is to get in. Yeah. So I want to give you some painkillers to start with, okay? You can probably start feeling a bit woozy. Just going to give you a little bit more of this.
It's an extremely painful procedure, so Jed isn't taking any chances. Andrew's given gas and air, the sedative midazolam, and the powerful painkiller morphine. They will help block out the pain and make Andrew feel as relaxed as possible.
Give you some more morphine, okay? Nice big breaths.
It looks like the medication's working.
How are you feeling?
Better than before.
Very good, that's what we like. What I'm going to do is to lie you back, yeah? You can keep checking on that, yeah?
Jed carefully manipulates Andrew's arm, rotating it until he can feel the joint click back into place.
How are you doing? Yeah? We can stop this now. I felt it clunk in, so I'm pretty optimistic that it'll be in the right place, but we need to get it x-rayed again, okay?
Yeah.
Hi Andrew, we're back again.
There's one final x-ray to check everything's in place. Then Andrew will need monitoring as the drugs wear off.
Post-reduction, we can actually see that the humerus is now back up, sitting in the appropriate joint on the scapula. Hi there. You feeling better? Well, your shoulders look the same from here, which is good. Yeah, so it's not down here anymore. We've had a look at the x-ray and it looks fine. It looks as though we've got the shoulder back into its joint. But what we'll have to do now, I think, is to get you to see the orthopaedic doctors.
Is that back here? Can I just do that in Lockerbie?
It'll be here at the outpatients clinic. All right, see you later.
With 2 dislocations in 6 months, Andrew's weak shoulder may need surgery. Every year in the UK, over 10,000 ops are carried out to repair damaged shoulders. But for now, he's fixed up and ready to face the 12-mile bus journey back home.